All right, everyone, we are moving right along, going to the Azure AD conditional access and multi-factor authentication. Okay, so we set up pretty much everything that we need to get started. There's a couple things that we're going to do here for our user accounts. So first and foremost, what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to, again, our good old buddy, the Azure Active Directory portal. Now, there's a couple places that we need to get to over here, but you'll notice that we have this little, the favorites over here. Well, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to click on all services up here on the top. And you'll see there's actually a lot more stuff. Now, you'll see this multi-factor authentication. We're not touching that. Don't even look at it. We're not going to do anything. We're actually going to use the more complicated, but it's the finer grain ability to be able to log into Office 365 services. So what we're going to do here is we're going to find Azure AD Conditional Access, which is the third one down in the identity column. If we come over here and see that little star next to it, if we click on that, we'll notice that it's over there now, which is super helpful. We're going to do a couple more of those as we go through here, but let's go ahead and click on Azure AD Conditional Access. So here's the policy section here. There's a lot of different things that we can do here, but realistically speaking, we're really only going to be focusing on creating the policies. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click the little button that says create a new policy. So conditional access it brings signals together to make decisions or enforce organization policies. Now that is the definition of what you see on the screen. What the heck does that mean? Well, as users are logging into Office 365 based on the criteria that they have, we're going to require different things. We may block them outright. We may want to do different things like allowing them to only have a web-only access to certain things. Well, there's a lot we can do with conditional access. Maybe we want to block access outside of the United States. We can do that, and we're going to create a couple policies here just to show you. But also, most importantly, is we're going to be blocking legacy authentication, which is one of the biggest pieces here inside of Office 365 to increase our security posture. So the way that conditional access policies work out is that they're all conditional. Basically, what this means here is it's conditional logic. It's if, then, else statements. That's really what it is. We have to build a statement, and then we're going to give it some sort of action that happens at the end of it. So in order to build the statement here, we have these three sections here at the top, which is the assignments, and then we have the access controls. So we're going to look at assignments. So what we're going to do here is we're going to call this MFA for admins strict. I don't know, we'll put it like that. That sounds good. So what we're going to do is we're going to go users and workload identities. We're going to go ahead and click on this. And what do we want to apply this to? So we have inclusions and exclusions here. If you are ever excluded from this list, you fall out of this policy, and this policy does not apply to you at all. So in this instance here, where we have include, what we're going to do is we're actually not going to include all users. We're actually going to come down here where it says directory roles. Put a little check in there. And you'll see all of the RBAC roles that we have seen, that we saw before. All of those RBAC roles have now been changed. So we're going to go ahead and put a check in all of these, which is annoying. There is no check all, by the way. And there are, I think, 70-ish now. So this is kind of annoying here, I'll be honest. Microsoft, if you are listening, please put a check all on here. Continue down the line here. Now, it's probably a good idea to only put the ones that you actually utilize in your organization. But again, it's not a bad idea to come in here and just check everything just to have your bases covered. Because again, we want to make sure that our admins are a little bit more protected than, let's just say, our regular user accounts. Okay. So if we come back on here, we'll go to Teams. Looks good. And then we will do these. Finally, we have 81 selected. Now, they do add ones from time to time in here, so it also is your responsibility to come in and double check this. Now, there's one thing before we go on. We're looking at multi-factor authentication. This is for admins only, so anybody in this directory role. If I am a member of this directory role, this policy is going to apply to me. However, there's one thing that I want to caveat that I want to also throw out here is that Microsoft has, and I also recommend this myself, Microsoft has a best practice to use what's referred to as a break glass account. So I want to really hammer this home here is that if you have to follow everything that I'm doing here to the T, if you don't, it is very easy for you to accidentally completely lock yourself out. and that requires a call to Microsoft, and it's a very annoying process. We don't want that to happen, of course. We want to be able to lock out these policies. So what we're going to actually do here is we're going to have two break glass accounts. So we're going to come in here, we're going to do specific users. Now for the user that I'm using, this MAlloway account here, I do not want my policy to fall into this one here, and I'll show you why. So we're going to do this backdoor admin. You remember this account that we created? We also want my MAlloway account in here. Now obviously yours is going to be whatever your name is. We're going to select these two. So basically it's saying is that as I'm authenticating to Office 365, if I am a member of any of these directory roles, but exclude these two user accounts. So in this instance here is that we are excluding these. Why do we care about backdoor admins and having a break glass account? Well, again, if we accidentally lock things out here, we are excluding these two from policies right now. This backdoor admin here is a true break glass account. This is just a convenience factor for the fact of what I'm doing here in lab. But again, looking at the backdoor admin is that this is a real, I do recommend installing this type of this type of account. And the reason being here is that when we accidentally lock out, or if we need something happens with MFA or whatever ends up happening, we'll have this backdoor one that we can come in here and make changes to. Again, conditional access is very easy to accidentally just block everybody in the organization. We don't really want to do that, of course. So we don't want to pretty much hold the entire tenant hostage. So what do we do with this account? Well, it's not going to have MFA on it, so that's bad. So we want to do some security policies around it. Now, we're not going to do it here in this lab because it requires a payment, because you do have to do an Azure log analytics workspace where you do have to pay for that. So there are no free trials for that one there, unfortunately. So we're not going to. We're still going to follow good practice here, of course. But again, at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. This is just a lab environment anyway. So we're excluding those accounts. We're including all directory roles. And our next piece that we're coming down the list here is, I hope it did select that correctly. Okay, it did. Coming over here, we're going to do cloud apps, and we're going to be, we can log into, we can have specific cloud apps. Well, what's a cloud app? Let's look over here. Office 365. We have Intune, Planner, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Yammer. So these are individual applications inside of Office 365. Now the good practice here in this instance is to include all cloud apps. This includes literally every application inside of Office 365, including the Azure portal, if you have any infrastructure as a service or any of the platforms as a service. We are not going to exclude anything here. We're going to come down here to conditions. This is where we have a lot of options. So all we're going to do right now is we're going to include client apps, and we're going to just choose pretty much everything. So what this client apps is I'm coming in from a modern authentication client, which is going to be a browser, or if I'm coming in from a mobile app or desktop client. So again, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So I'm coming in from the Outlook client. I'm coming in from the Teams client. I'm coming in from the Teams mobile client or the iOS application. ActiveSync. This is legacy stuff here. These really aren't utilized, but I'll show you essentially what we can do with these. We're going to block these too at the end of the day, but we'll just keep these. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and uncheck those for the time being. We're going to go ahead and hit it done. We have the client app set up here. So again, if I am in this instance here, and I have selected all of these, I don't know why it did that. That's strange. So we have select users and groups, directory roles, specific users included, so specific users excluded. So anybody in the directory role is going to get it. Okay, great. Now we've set up our condition here. So if I am one of those admin accounts and I'm coming into any cloud application, any portal in Office 365 through either a web browser or through a desktop client, then this policy is going to apply to me. So what are the actions that we can do here? So grant is we can grant access, but we require multi-factor authentication. Okay. We can require the device to be marked as compliant, hybrid joined. We can also have approved client apps, these things here. I'm not going to worry too much about these. We can also require password change. We'll get onto that later, but for now, we're just going to put the little check in there, which require multi-factor authentication. Looks good. Now, we're going to jump down here to the session section here. This is one thing that I always like to bring up with my customers. Remember, these are MFA for admins. by default, sign-in frequency, as you can see on the screen here, 90 days, rolling 90 days. If I'm coming in from the same computer, the same IP address, the same geographic location, pretty much everything the same, I am going to be asked to MFA every 90 days. Now that's fine for a standard user in my personal opinion, but for an administrator, I don't think so. I don't think that's a good practice. I actually like lowering this here, and I'm going to do, we'll do 7 days. We can do hours and days. I've had customers go, I've had 8 hours, I've had 2 hours as well. I don't recommend that. It's too difficult and it's too annoying for the users. Remember, we don't want to have this, a super big problem for our people to be able to do their jobs. Now, when we're looking at MFA for admins, there's other things that we can set up, of course. And we also have this every time, which is really annoying, so keep that in mind. We don't want to be annoying when it comes to users. Especially for admins here, they need to do their day-to-day tasks. Sure, we want to be secure, but we also don't want to be too annoying. So we'll go ahead and hit select. So again, looking at this, if I am a specific user, so again, if I'm a member of those groups coming into any cloud application on any type of browser, so a browser or thick client or a desktop client, I'm going to require MFA every 7 days. We're down here, we have it set to report only, which is what it's set to by default, which will not actually do any actions. It will only report, saying that, hey, so-and-so, this would have triggered, but it won't do anything. Well, that doesn't do us any good here, so we're going to go ahead and flip this right to on, and we're going to create. So the reason why I called this strict here is because we have 7 days as opposed to the 90 days. We're going to create another policy here. I'm going to call this MFA for users. And we're going to choose all users in this instance here. We're going to exclude directory roles. And yes, unfortunately, I have to do all 81 of these again. Almost done. Okay, geez Louise. All right, so we are excluding directory roles because we have another policy that fits for them. We want them to fall out of this policy and go over to the other one. So this is going to be for all users inside of the organization. We're going to come under here. We're going to do the same exact thing, all cloud apps, because again, anytime anybody logs into the portal, we want to do that. Same concept applies here when we're coming in from client apps. We want to configure, we want to uncheck ActiveSync in other clients, which is just very vague here. This is going to be IMAP, POP, SMTP. Those are legacy authentications. We'll talk about those here in just a second. We're going to hit done. Come over here to grant, require multi-factor authentication. Select. Alrighty. We are not going to do anything with the session controls. We're going to leave those as they are because again, this is for standard users. We're going to want to keep it simple for them. 90 days is fine. Maybe you want to lower it to 30. That's fine too. But again, for lab environment, 90 days is perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and create. All right, the last thing that we're going to do, and again, we want to increase our security posture, is block legacy auth. Alrighty, so what's going to end up happening here is we are going to select all users all the time. We are not going to exclude anybody here. We're going to do, we'll do all cloud apps, that's fine. And then we're going to come down here to conditions, and we're going to do client apps. We're going to uncheck these two, which means that if I'm coming into the Office 365 portal under one of these older versions, I'm going to fit into this policy. But if I'm coming into the portal under one of the newer versions, I'm going to fit the other policy. So in this instance here, we're going to be choosing ActiveSync and others there. We're going to come over here to grant. We're going to block. So we want to be very, very careful with this one here. So they do, and they say, hey, don't lock yourself out because you're using block access. Remember, we're doing all users block. Well, okay, maybe we accidentally did this, and maybe it's a problem. So maybe it's a good idea that we exclude our current user. So that's probably a good plan here, is that if we go ahead and hit create, we will block it, or it'll create it, or automatically add that exclusion in there. Now, you notice I also put this on report only. Since we're in a lab, and again, maybe I'm sure a lot of you are new to this, I'm not going to really go too much when, again, it comes to block access. Well, remember, that could be bad. May not be. So if we come over here just to show you, we do have an exclusion on that, which is fine. We're going to keep this on report only for the time being. Now, we have these 3 policies. We want to do some testing with them. So let's go to what if. So this is a what if calculator. So in my organization, if I am, let's just say, Neil Peart, I'm logging into any cloud app on anything. Okay, we'll just keep it as is. Let's say, what if? So there's 2 policies that will apply to me, the block legacy authentication and the MFA for users. You'll know that MFA for admin is not going to be applying to me. But we'll still see this block legacy auth. Well, that's because we come down here and we come to the cloud apps. Let's just say I'm coming in from a browser. What if? MFA for users is the only thing that's going to apply to me. If I come down to, instead of browser, maybe I want to do other clients, legacy auth. I'm blocked. So you can do a calculation based off of this. Hey, maybe we want to change some things that blocked from the geographic, maybe we want everybody. I've had a customer who wanted to essentially block all access from outside of the U.S. They only did business in the continental U.S. Okay, well, that's fine. You want to do that. That's cool. We can do that as well. Again, just got to be careful with these. We got to always use the break glass accounts. They're always good practices to do so. All right, let's test some of these things out here in real time. So if we, again, come over to create a new incognito mode, log in, in Peart at squareprofessor.live. Let me drag this over here so you can see it. We'll hit next. Now remember, we'll see our branding on here. So again, we have trust. We're instilling trust that we're on the correct website. I'm going to type in my password. All right. Now, as it stands right here, it says, hey, approve sign-in request. I pull up my app. I got a little buzz on my app. I pull up the app, and it scans my face, and it says, hey, so-and-so, do you approve this sign-in request? Well, we hit the little approve button, scans my face, and it allows me in. So now I'm into Office 365. I have effectively, by 99.9%, just protected my user accounts inside of Office 365. I have just done that. And as you see on here, we can definitely see, I believe this will show, give me just a second here, I don't want to show too much. But yeah, this does show the locations of where I'm coming from, as well as the IP address. So this will all be, and like I said, I will show you that over time when I'm showing you, when I'm essentially blocking my address or masking my address on. But as it stands right now, we've created these 3 policies here, and I've created this one on report only. It's fine. Again, we're in a lab environment. It's cool. Don't worry about it. MFA for users, MFA for admins, those are going to be different things depending on what we log in with. So remember, again, Geddy Lee is a member of that SharePoint admin, so he has that strict policy because he has a privileged account. That's fine too. Again, there's a lot of different factors. They all work that exact same way. This MFA inside of Office 365 is super easy to work with. Again, using the app is the preferred way of going about it because apps themselves are hard-coded to devices. You cannot intercept them. Meaning we can't do the SMS duplication, or excuse me, the SIM duplication, so we can essentially hijack your SMS messages and such. That can't be done with the app. The app is hard-coded to run on it. And we also have the biometrics involved on the phone. I know iOS and Android both do. So before you actually authenticate, you do have to biometric as well. So with that being said, there are other factors. But I'm not going to touch on those because some of those here are just not that relevant. Some of these like name locations and such, but we can get very, very granular with conditional access policies. I don't want to get too far down in those rabbit holes there because, again, you can get very, very crazy on it. We can do terms of use policies, and when someone logs in, they have to essentially agree to the terms of use. We can also do, hey, maybe we don't want to do MFA from a specific IP address range. Not my recommendation, but it could be something where, hey, I'm coming in from the office, the corporate office. If I'm coming in from that IP address range, maybe I don't need my users to do MFA. Just wanting to, have a little bit easier of a process for them day to day. Yeah, okay, that's not a bad idea either, I suppose. It could be done. It's not that difficult to spoof IP addresses anymore, but there are other ways that we can go about this as well, as around the idea of managed devices. That's a discussion for our next section here, but when we're looking at managed devices, we could say, hey, this device is enrolled in Intune. We don't need to do MFA for it because we know it's safe and it is known to be secure. Maybe we want to do something like that. Well, we can go, sky's the limit, really. So with that being said, that is the last piece here of the conditional access and the MFA discussion. We're going to start talking about some of the more, we'll call it the enterprise applications, and then we're going to continue jumping into the Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2 license package, which we get some really, really cool stuff. So I hope you learned something on this one. Thank you for your time, and I will see you on the next one.